I'd like to welcome in now retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Teicher. General, so great to see you. How significant is this decision by President Biden? What does it mean for how that war potentially moves forward?
Nicole, first of all, this is part of a bit of a cycle by the Biden administration where products or permissions are given far too late to Ukraine to actually be significant at the tactical, operational, or strategic level. It does provide new permissions that now will enable Ukraine to strike what would otherwise be a sanctuary for Russian troops inside of Russia as they prepare for offensive operations or logistical supply lines. And it also does provide a bit of a boost of strength to Ukraine that may make it more likely, not less likely, for President Trump to broker a deal as soon as possible to end the war when he begins his tenure.
So, General, based on everything that you know, how much of this decision do you think has to do with the fact that Biden's term ends in 60-odd days?
Nicole, those that have reported about this from the White House have said that it's very specifically to level the playing field now that there's this inclusion of North Korean troops into the Kursk region and would allow the Ukrainians to strike those troops. But it's probably far more likely that Biden is thinking about two things. Number one, he's thinking about his legacy and putting Ukraine in the most favorable position possible to achieve U.S. aims in the war. And then secondly, he probably is very cognizant of the idea that if he can strengthen and make Ukraine more lethal, then it actually provides maneuver room for the new president to negotiate that settlement to end the conflict as quickly as possible. And so Biden may be helping himself and his legacy, but maybe helping President Trump as well.
Well, there's also, as we discussed, the Kremlin viewing this as escalation by the U.S. Worst case scenario, General, how would Russia respond?
Nicole, we have seen threats of escalation from Putin throughout the 1,000 days of this war. And in each case, it likely has been the primary factor driving President Biden to delay the types of products and permissions that Ukraine needs. We haven't seen that escalation play out. So all of those red lines have been crossed to no effect. And I likely believe that Putin is hoping to deter the United States from permissions like these. And the reality is he is unlikely to respond in a different, more substantial way than the war has unfolded in the last 2.5 years. But Biden has been deterred by Putin throughout this war, and likely Putin is hoping one last gasp of deterrence against the American president before he sees a president of strength take over in President Trump.
And as you mentioned, 2.5 years, this war has been raging on. In your opinion, is this a war Ukraine can win?
Nicole, to some extent, they have already won. We have seen them hold off Russia, and Russia had fully believed in a few days that they could take over the entirety of Ukraine, certainly Kyiv. And now we've seen Ukraine create a stagnant situation, a stalemate, mostly in the current instantiation of the war. And it would be a win for all sides and the United States and Europe to find a justifiable end to this conflict as soon as possible. President Trump is intent on doing so, and President Biden realizes that the best way that Russia can be brought to such a table is to put Ukraine in the strongest, most lethal position possible so that President Trump can see a quick end to the conflict.
And last question for you, General. We know that the president-elect has spoke highly of Vladimir Putin. How do you think once he's in office, then President Trump will respond to what's happening in Ukraine?
Nicole, President Trump is indeed the only one that can bring Zelensky and Putin together at the table. And the only way that we're going to end this war is if both of those sides believes it's in their best interest to negotiate a settlement or a peace. And President Trump is likely the only person that can do that. And part of it is relationships with both Putin and Zelensky that will allow him to broker a deal that is in the best interest of the United States.
Retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teicher, always great to speak with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.